Nina stood quietly at the back of the wedding hall, dressed in a simple blue sari that once made her feel beautiful. Laughter echoed around her, glasses clinked, music played, and couples swayed on the dance floor, but she didn't move. Her smile was soft, polite, almost invisible. She had been invited because she was family, but she had stayed because maybe some small part of her still believed in love. She watched her cousin, 30 years old and glowing, dance with her new husband. Everyone praised their story. They met on a dating app. Can you believe it? They knew in the first week. Some people just get lucky. Someone whispered behind her, not realizing she could hear. Nina still hopes someone will marry her at 42. Another voice joined in. She's too picky. Missed her chances. Now she's just waiting for a miracle. Nina's throat tightened. She turned away, hiding her face, and walked quietly to the corner of the hall where the old family photos were displayed. One picture showed her at 23, standing next to Mariam, her younger sister, on her wedding day. Back then, Nina had believed her time would come soon too, that someone would see her the way her sister's husband looked at Mariam, but years passed, and no one came. Suitors faded, friends married, her parents stopped asking, and slowly the world decided she didn't belong in the story of love anymore. By the time she reached home that night, her heart felt heavy. She changed out of her sari, wiped off the makeup, and sat on her bed. The small apartment was quiet, filled with the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the distant bark of a street dog. She opened the drawer of her side table, looking for her phone charger. Instead, her fingers touched something else, a soft leather cover, worn at the edges. Her old diary. She hadn't seen it in years. She pulled it out, dusting off the cover. Inside, page after page, was filled with letters, not to anyone specific, just ... to someone she used to hope would come into her life. She had written things like, "Today I watched the rain and imagined us drinking chai together, laughing about nothing." Or, "I don't need someone perfect, just someone kind." She smiled sadly. Silly girl, she whispered to herself. But then something strange happened. Just as she closed the diary, a soft thud came from her front door. A letter. She hadn't ordered anything. No one usually sent her post. Curious. She got up, walked to the door, and opened it. No one was there. She looked down. A single white envelope lay on the doormat. Her name was written on it in bold, neat handwriting. Just her name, no stamp, no return address. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked it up and walked back inside. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she stared at it for a moment before slowly tearing it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It read, "Dear Nina, you don't know me yet, but I know you. I know you still believe in love, even if the world laughs. I know you sit by the window and imagine a life that feels too far now. But I need you to know your story isn't over. It's just been waiting for the right page to begin again. Don't give up." Signed, a friend. She stared at the words, heart racing. Who would write something like this? How did they know her so well? She read it again and again. Was it a prank? Someone's idea of a joke? But there was something about the handwriting, the choice of words. It didn't feel like mockery. It felt real, honest, like someone had actually seen her. She turned the envelope over, looking for any clue. Nothing. For the first time in years, her heart fluttered, not in pain, but in curiosity. Could it really be someone from her past? She thought hard. Was there anyone who would remember her like this? Her mind drifted back to a rainy afternoon at a train station 20 years ago. She had missed her train. A young man had shared his umbrella. They had spoken for only an hour, but it had felt like something more. His name had been ... Rov. She had never seen him again. Nina shook her head. No, it can't be, but still, a part of her wondered. She placed the letter inside her diary and set it beside her pillow. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Her thoughts danced between the pain of the wedding and the mystery of the letter. And as she finally drifted off, her mind whispered one simple question. What if it's not too late? The next morning, as sunlight poured in through the window, Nina woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. Not heaviness, not sadness, something lighter, like the very first page of a brand new book. She got up and opened the diary again, and inside, where she had left the letter, there was something else, a pressed wildflower. She hadn't placed it there, and she had seen that flower before. But where? She picked it up, turned it in her hand, and then it hit her. It was the same kind of flower that had grown beside the bench at that train station, the one where she met Arav. She gasped softly. This was no coincidence. Whoever left that letter knew exactly where to touch her heart, and now, she needed to know. Who was it? And why now, after all these years? Her story, long forgotten by the world, had just turned its first page. Nina spent the whole day thinking about the letter. She read it again during breakfast, held it in her hand as she watered the plants, and tucked it under her pillow when she went to lie down. It felt impossible and yet too personal to ignore. The words were kind. Too kind. Whoever wrote them didn't just know her, they had been watching her heart, not her life. She hadn't told anyone. What would she say? That someone knew her dreams better than even her closest friends. That a stranger had left her a letter with no name, no address, but with words that felt like home. But her mind kept circling back to that one memory of. She was 21, rushing to catch a train after a college interview in another city. It had started raining, and her umbrella flipped inside out. She had been standing at the edge of the platform, trying not to cry, when a soft voice had said, "Need some help?" A young man, around her age, held an umbrella over both their heads. His smile was quiet, his eyes kind. They sat on the bench for nearly an hour talking about books, life, and dreams. She had never spoken so freely with a stranger before, or after. She never saw him again. She didn't even remember his full name, but now 2 decades later that same kind of flower from the station was pressed in her diary beside the letter. Could it really be him? She had to find out. That evening she took the letter, the flower, and her diary, and walked to the only place that might still connect her to the past, the old train station. It had changed. The benches were new, the paint fresher, the loudspeaker clearer, but something about the air still smelled like yesterday, like old memories hiding in the cracks of the walls. She sat on the same side where she remembered meeting Arav. Her heart beat a little faster as she looked around. She had no idea what she was hoping to find. A face, a clue, a sign, nothing. The platform was mostly empty. A few passengers waiting, a boy selling tea, a woman with 2 sleeping children on her lap. But then, as she stood to leave, something caught her eye. Under the bench, something was taped to the metal frame. She bent down and carefully pulled it. OFFA photograph. Her photograph. She was younger, in it maybe in her 20s, laughing with her hair flying in the wind. She didn't remember the photo ever being taken. On the back, in neat writing, were the words, "Time changes everything, except the heart." Her breath caught. It was real. Someone had been waiting, watching, remembering. She turned the photo over again and again, searching for any more clues, but that was all. She clutched it tightly and hurried home. The next day, she went to the local market where old letters, antiques, and books were sold. An old man who ran the bookstore near the station might remember something. "Excuse me," she said gently, placing the photo and letter on the counter. "Have you ever seen this before?" The man squinted, adjusted his glasses, and picked up the photograph. A strange look passed across his face. "I might have," he said after a long pause. "A man used to come here every few years, bought paper, ink, and sometimes left things to be found. Said he was waiting for someone named Nana." Her eyes widened. "Did he leave a name?" "No, just left a note once. Said if a woman named Nana ever came asking, I should give this to her." He opened a drawer and took out a small envelope. With shaking hands, Nana opened it. Inside was another letter. "If you find this, it means time hasn't erased everything. It means hope still breathes. I never stopped wondering about that rainy afternoon. I never forgot your voice, or the way you smiled at strangers like they mattered. I looked for you many times, but the world is big, and I was never brave enough to stay in one place, so I left pieces behind. A photo here, a flower there, a note under a bench. If you found one, you'd find the next, and maybe, just maybe, we'd find each other again someday." Anana's heart felt like it might burst. It had to be AARAV. She walked out of the bookstore, head spinning, letter clutched tightly in her hand. This wasn't just coincidence, it was a trail, a love letter scattered in pieces. Across time, someone had never stopped believing in her even when she had. As she walked back toward the street, a small voice inside her whispered, "Don't stop now." She needed to know the truth. Was he still searching, or had he already given up? As the sun began to set, casting orange shadows across the road, Nina looked up at the sky. She didn't have answers yet, but she had something she hadn't felt in years, a reason to keep walking. And just before she reached her building, phone buzzed. A new message. No number, just a few words. "Next page waits in the place you always dreamed of visiting but never did." The next morning, Nina stood at her window, watching the sky turn pale with dawn. She hadn't slept much. Her thoughts had circled all night around the photo under the bench, the bookstore man, and the last message that hinted at the cabin, a place she had only spoken about once, to one person. So long ago. She took a deep breath. Something deep inside her whispered that if she didn't follow this now, she might never forgive herself. This wasn't just about love. It was about memory, about belief, about the pieces of herself she had left behind while chasing deadlines. Pretending she no longer cared, she packed a small bag with warm clothes, her diary, the letters, and the pressed flower. Then she booked a car and gave the driver the name of the village in the hills where she once dreamed of living. She had never been there, but somehow, she felt sure that's where he meant. The journey took 5 hours. As the car climbed into the hills, the air grew colder, crisper. The trees leaned closer to the road, whispering old secrets. With every turn, her heart beat faster. At last the car stopped near a wooden sign that read, Maple Creek, a small, sleepy village nestled between pine trees and silence. She stepped out. The wind touched her face like a forgotten song. Everything was quiet, peaceful, like a page that hadn't yet been written on. She walked slowly through the village, asking the locals if they knew of a wooden cabin nearby, maybe one that had been empty or visited by a man named Araf. Most shook their heads. Some smiled politely, but one old woman, sitting outside a small tea shop, narrowed her eyes. Tall man, lived alone, came and went, never said much, but kind. She said, he used to buy tea from me. Always sat in the corner with a notebook. Nina leaned forward. Do you know where he stayed? The woman pointed up the hill. There's a cabin, bit old now, locked, I think. No one's been there for a while. Thank you, Nina whispered. She followed the narrow path up the hill, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Her shoes crunched on dry leaves. With each step her heart pounded harder. And then there it was. A small wooden cabin, tucked between two tall trees. The roof was slightly slanted, the windows dusty, but it stood strong, like it had been waiting. She pushed the gate open. It creaked. The front door had a lock, but a small key hung behind a loose stone near the step, as if someone wanted her to find it. Her fingers shook as she turned the key. The door opened with a soft groan. Inside, dust floated in beams of sunlight that slipped through the curtains. A fireplace stood at the center, a single chair near it, a rug, a wooden table, and on that Tabala notebook. Nina stepped forward, her legs weak. She touched the notebook gently. Opened the first page. It was his handwriting. If Nina ever finds this place, I hope she knows I never stopped writing to her, even when I couldn't send the letters. She flipped through the pages. Each one was filled with dates, thoughts, sketches, and little notes. Many began with her name. Today, I saw someone with her laugh, and it made me turn around. I wonder if she still likes the rain. If love has a face? For me, it always looked like hers. Nina's eyes blurred with tears. She sat down in the chair, holding the notebook to her chest. He had waited. She had not imagined it. Her memories had meant something. But then she saw something else. A map, folded neatly inside the last page of the notebook. She opened it. A red circle marked a place nearby, and next to it a note. If she comes, she'll know where to go next. Nina stared at it. Was it another clue? Another step in this trail he had left for her. She stood up, took the map, and stepped outside. The sun was lower now, casting a golden light on the trees. She followed the direction on the map, down a winding path, past a small stream, until she reached a wooden bench facing a wide meadow, and there on the bench was a package wrapped in brown paper, with her name written clearly across it. She picked it up, heart pounding, opened it slowly. Inside was a sketchbook, and the very first page held a drawing of her older, just as she was now. Sitting under a tree, reading. She gasped. Beneath the sketch were the words, I never saw her again, but I imagined what she'd look like if she still believed. Her hands trembled. How did he know she would come back to this belief? How did he know that after all these years, she would still follow hope? She turned the next page. More drawings. Her laughing, writing, walking barefoot in the grass. He had imagined her, life without ever seeing her again. It was the purest kind of love. And yet, she still didn't know. Where was he now? Why hadn't he left a way to find him? Just then, her phone buzzed. One new message from the same unknown sender. You've seen what I remembered. But to find me, you must remember something too. Go back, to where you said goodbye. Nina stared at the screen. Where I said goodbye. The train station. No, not that goodbye. A deeper one. Her breath caught. It wasn't a place. It was a moment. The last place she saw her sister, Miriam, before the accident, before everything changed. The hospital. That's where she had whispered goodbye to her sister too. Herself. To love. Now she knew. Nina sat in the silence of the cabin long after the sun had gone down. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickers of gold across the wooden walls. The sketchbook lay open in her lap, her eyes still fixed on the drawing of herself older, stronger, full of a hope she hadn't felt in years. He had seen her like that. Even without seeing her, the last message replayed in her mind. Go back, to where you said goodbye. Her chest tightened. She knew exactly what it meant now. It wasn't the train station. It wasn't about him. It was about Miriam, her sister, her best friend. The one person who had believed in her when she stopped. Believing in herself, she hadn't visited Miriam's resting place in years. Not because she didn't care, but because it hurt too much. The last time she stood at that hospital bedside, Nina had whispered goodbye with a heart full of guilt and sorrow. Miriam had been only 30, a sudden accident, a life stolen too soon. And with her death, Nina had buried more than had buried her own belief that love could still bloom after pain. But now, something inside her stirred. She needed to return, not just to remember, but to reopen a door she had shut a long time ago. The next morning, she packed the letters, the flower, and the sketchbook, and left the cabin behind. The trees waved gently as she passed, as if telling her the road ahead would change everything. The drive back to the city was quiet. The streets felt different now, like every building and every turn carried a part of her story. She reached the hospital by afternoon. The same white walls, the same scent of disinfectant, the same silence in the corridors. Nothing had changed, and yet everything inside her had. She found the bench outside the room where Miriam had taken her last breath. It was still there, the same place where Nina had cried quietly, clutching her sister's scarf, wishing she had said more. She sat down, closed her eyes, and let the memories return. Miriam had always known Naina's heart better than anyone. She used to laugh and say, "One day, a man will come who won't be afraid of your dreams." Naina had smiled back then, but deep down, she never fully believed it until now. She opened her diary and placed it gently on the bench. Then she whispered, softly, "I'm sorry I stopped writing. I'm sorry I stopped believing." The wind picked up a leaf, floated down, and landed on the sketchbook. Naina picked it up. There was something inside. A folded note between the pages she hadn't noticed before. It wasn't in Arif's handwriting. It was Miriam's. Naina's heart skipped a beat. She unfolded it with trembling hands. "Dear Naina, if you're reading this, it means you've come back. I knew you would. I knew the day would come when your heart would start whispering again. I left this with someone who promised to keep it safe. I asked him to return it when you needed it most. Maybe he found you. Maybe you found him. But no matter how it happened, I hope you now understand something I always wanted you to. No love doesn't expire with time. It doesn't shrink with age. It doesn't disappear because others laugh at it. You have always been capable of the deepest love, the kind people dream of. That kind of love doesn't just wait for the right person, it finds them. Forgive yourself for the time you think you lost. Nothing is lost. Everything is just waiting. Love." Miriam. Naina pressed the letter to her chest, tears falling freely down her face. Her sister had believed in her love story even after she was gone, and somehow, through all the years and silence, she had helped bring it back. Because that message hadn't come out of nowhere. Someone had kept it. Someone had waited. Naina turned the note over. At the bottom was a line written in another hand, smaller, neater. "Miriam gave this to me to give you. I didn't know when it would be the right time. Until I saw you at the station last week." She gasped. He had seen her. He had been there. She hadn't imagined it. He was watching from somewhere close. But why didn't he come forward? Why all these letters and clues? Suddenly, her phone vibrated. A new message. Same unknown number. "I watched you today. At the bench. You're not the same Naina I met at the station. You're braver now. Come to the last place we spoke. You'll find me there." The last place they spoke, not the train station. Her breath caught again. The platform. The rain. Last words they had exchanged. "You said one day you'd find me if I ever wanted to be found," she whispered, and she had laughed and replied, "Then I'll wait on the other side of time." That was the place. The old waiting room near platform 3. She ran back to the station, back to the memory. It was nearly. Naina stood frozen in the doorway of the old waiting room, the flickering candlelight dancing across Arif's face. Taim had carved lines on his skin, and his hair had thinned, but his eyes, they were exactly the same. Soft, steady, familiar. Like the rain-soaked afternoon she had carried in her memory for 20 years. Had returned to her in human form. Neither of them spoke for a few seconds. There was too much to sign yet, for that moment. Silence said it all. Arif took a cautious step forward. "You came," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Naina nodded, eyes glistening. "I didn't know if you were real anymore." He gave a faint smile. "There were days I wondered the same." She moved closer, unsure if she should hug him, cry, or simply sit and stare. So she chose the safest option. She sat on the bench near the candle. The same one they had once shared when the sky poured rain and strangers became something more. "You left so many signs," she said softly, tracing the edge of the sketchbook. In her lap, letters, drawings, flowers. "Why not just come to me?" He lowered his gaze. "Because I wasn't sure I deserved to." Her heart squeezed. "Why? I left without saying goodbye. I didn't come looking for you when I should have, and when I finally tried, you had already vanished from the city. I thought maybe life had taken you somewhere else, somewhere better." Naina stared at him, trying to understand the sadness buried in his voice. "But you were the one I never forgot. Even when the world laughed at me for still hoping. It was you I kept believing in?" Arif looked at her, emotion flickering in his eyes. "I saw you 2 weeks ago, at the station. You were sitting alone on platform 2, lost in thought. I was on the opposite side. I almost called out, but something held me back. I needed to be sure that your heart still held space for me." She smiled gently. "My heart never closed. It only grew quieter." He walked to the bench and sat beside her. For a while, they simply listened to the ticking of the old wall clock, to the distant sound of announcements, and to the silence between two people who had waited half their lives to meet again. Then Arif reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. This was supposed to be the last letter. "If you hadn't come, I would have sent it. Or maybe I wouldn't have. I was too afraid. It was all in my head." Naina took the envelope, opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten note, short and simple. "If we are meant to cross paths again, I won't need a map or a message. I'll just follow my heart. And if she's still there waiting, believing you'll know it was real." She blinked, back tears. "I never stopped believing." They sat in stillness, holding on to the moment like it was something fragile that might slip through their fingers. Then Naina turned to him. "But what happened to you, Arif, after we parted? Why the sudden vanishing? Why the letters under benches instead of conversations?" Arif inhaled deeply, then exhaled with weight. "After that day, I returned home thinking I'd find you again soon. But life, as it always does, had other plans. My father fell ill. I took over the family business. I lost myself in responsibilities. And when I finally came back to the city, you were gone. Your house was sold, your number disconnected, and you didn't stop searching. I never stopped, he said. But instead of searching in the usual ways, I left traces. I believed if your heart still remembered me, you'd find them, that you'd find me. And here you are. Nina placed her hand over his. It was warm, trembling slightly. She smiled. You don't need to leave signs anymore. I'm here now. He turned to her slowly, their eyes locking again, and for the first time in years, something unspoken passed between them. Not longing, not regret, recognition, but just as the moment began to settle, something outside broke the stillness. A loud knock on the waiting room door. Both turned in surprise. A man stood in the doorway, tall, stern-faced, wearing a dark coat. His eyes were locked on Arav Sethi. The man asked, voice sharp. Arav stood, startled. Yes, I'm from the agency. We've been looking for you. You missed your final hearing. Nina looked between the two men, confused. What's going on? Araf's shoulders dropped. He turned toward her, guilt washing over his face. I didn't tell you everything. The man stepped forward. He's under investigation. Inheritance issues, property dispute, accusations of forgery. We need him back at the city office immediately. Nina's heart dropped. Is this true? Arav nodded slowly. There was a family conflict. I walked away from it. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine, but they didn't care. I've been avoiding it. Hiding, maybe. But not because I did something wrong. Just because. I didn't want my past to ruin what little peace I had left. The officer interrupted. You have to come with us now. Nina stood, gripping his arm. Wait, can I speak to him? Just for a minute? The man sighed but stepped outside. Nina turned to Aro, voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Why now? Because I didn't want our story to start with shadows. I wanted this moment to be pure, honest. Tears welled in her eyes. You should have trusted me with the truth. I do now. That's why I'm not running anymore. He held her gaze. Will you wait for me? She didn't hesitate. I waited 20 years. I can wait a little more. He gave a small, sad smile. Then maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's just another pause. As he walked away with the officer, Nina stood alone again in the quiet waiting room. But this time, she didn't feel lost. She felt certain. Love, after all, wasn't just about being together. It was about choosing to believe, even when the world gave you every reason not to, and she had made her choice. The next few days passed like slow-moving clouds across a gray sky. Nina returned to her apartment, but everything around her now felt different. The same furniture, the same silence, but her heart beat with a new rhythm. One shaped by hope, fear, and questions that refused to rest. Arav was gone, taken into the system, and though he had left her with promises, Nina couldn't ignore the uncertainty that lingered in his eyes that day at the station. She hadn't heard from him. No letters, no messages, no signs. But she didn't give up. Each morning, she made tea for two. She placed his sketchbook beside her breakfast plate. She spoke to him in her mind, telling him what she had done that day, what memories she'd recalled. And every night, she opened his last letter and read it aloud before sleeping. One afternoon, while cleaning out the bookshelf, she found something that stopped her breath. A postcard, tucked inside a book she hadn't touched in years. It was from Miriam. The picture was of a lake, surrounded by hills, and the handwriting was hers. If you ever feel lost, go where your heart was quiet once. I promise you'll hear more than just your thoughts. Nina stared at the lake on the card. She remembered it now. Miriam and she had visited that place during a short vacation, years ago. It had been one of the rare moments of peace in their chaotic lives. Could it be connected to Arav somehow? She turned the card over again. There, faint but visible, was a tiny initial in the corner. Her heart jumped. Had Arav visited the lake, too? Was it a place he went to find peace? Had Miriam known something? The next morning, Nina packed a small bag and took a bus to the town near the lake. It was quiet, almost forgotten by tourists. The roads were narrow, the houses few. Birds chirped gently, and the air was clean. She walked to the lakeside, sat on a worn wooden bench beneath a tree, and closed her eyes. The water was still. The breeze whispered through the leaves, and then, she heard a voice, familiar, deep, behind her. You found the place. She turned. A man stood there, not Arav, older, bearded, kind-eyed. Do I know you? She asked, cautious but curious. He smiled. I knew Arav. I helped him for a while, gave him shelter when he didn't want to be found. Her eyes widened. He stayed here. Yes, he used to come sit by this lake. Said it reminded him of someone who once believed in forever. Nina's throat tightened. Why didn't he come back? Why did he disappear again? The man sat beside her because he was scared, not of you, but of what he'd bring into your life. He was being accused of things he didn't do by people who wanted to destroy his name. He couldn't bring that into your world, but I would have stood by him. I believe that. So did he. But when a man spends years feeling like a shadow, he forgets what it means to stand in the light. Nina wiped a tear from her cheek. Where is he now? The man hesitated. I'm not sure. But before he left this place, he gave me something. Told me to give it to you if you ever came. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. Her name was on it. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Nana, by now. I hope you've forgiven me. Not just for leaving, but for not trusting you with the parts of me that were broken. I thought love was about perfection. But then I met you again, and I realized it's about choosing someone, even with the cracks. If you're reading this, I'm probably trying to clear my name, fight the battle I ran from. But I want you to know I never ran from you. I remember the lake. You once told me it felt like the world held its breath there. That's how I felt when I saw you again. Like time itself paused, just to give us one more chance. I don't know what happens next, but if fate is kind, meet me at the cabin. On the night of the first winter snow, I'll wait. Yours always. Arav. Nina folded the letter, pressing it to her chest. He was giving her a choice, another chance. She looked up at the sky. Winter snow hadn't arrived yet, but soon it would. And she would be there. No more doubts, no more questions, no more questions. She returned home with a steady heart. Snow fell outside in slow, silent waves as Naina stood in the warmth of the cabin, Arav's hand in hers. For a moment, neither spoke. They didn't need to. Years of distance, silence, and longing had already spoken for them. The crackling of the fireplace filled the space between them, steady and calm, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again after being lost. Arav looked older up close, his hair peppered with gray, eyes tired, but when he smiled, Naina could still see the boy, who once shared an umbrella with her at a rainy station. She touched his face gently, as if to confirm he was real. I was scared, he whispered. So was I, she replied. They sat down near the fireplace. Arav poured her tea still, remembering she liked it with 1 spoon of sugar and no milk. That tiny act melted something inside her. I missed so much of your life, he said after a while. She looked into her cup. And yet, here we are. He reached into the drawer beside the fire and took out a bundle of papers, old, yellowed, handwritten. I wrote you letters, he said, all these years, even when I didn't know where to send them. Naina took the bundle with shaking hands. She flipped through the pages. Each letter was dated. Each one started the same way. Dear Naina, I hope today was kind to you. Some letters were long, filled with dreams, regrets, questions. Others were only a few lines. One simply said, I saw a girl today who laughed like you. I almost followed her, but I knew she wasn't you. My heart never made that mistake. Tears rolled down Naina's cheeks. Why didn't you ever move on? Arav's answer came gently. Because even when I tried, my heart would always turn back to you, as if it remembered something my mind kept trying to forget. She placed the letters on her lap. I thought I was foolish, hoping for love after 40. People laughed. They laughed because they don't understand. Arav said, they think love has deadlines, expiry dates. But love doesn't keep time. It just waits. They sat in silence again. The kind that didn't feel empty, only full of all the things they didn't need to explain. That night, they made dinner. Together, simple food, laughter over burnt chapati, 2 cups of chai. The cabin felt alive again. Not because of the fire or the warmth, but because it held to people who finally stopped running from their own story. Later, as snow blanketed the world outside, Arav lit a candle in the middle of the room. Do you remember what you said to me when we first met? He asked. She smiled. You mean the part where I said I was running late and didn't believe in fate? No, he chuckled. After that, when we were sitting on the bench, you said, if you ever want to find me again, follow the sound of the rain. Naina laughed softly. I didn't think you were listening. I never stopped. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, simple silver engraved with a tiny raindrop dot. Her breath caught. This isn't a proposal, he said quickly. Not yet. I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking for time, real time, together. No more letters hidden under benches. No more maybe someday, just now. She took the ring, turned it in her fingers. You already have all my time. They didn't say I love you, not yet. Some words are too big to speak quickly, but it hung between them, soft and real. For the first time in decades, Naina went to sleep with peace instead of questions. But peace never lasts long without a test. The next morning, Arav stepped outside to gather firewood. He didn't come back for a long time. Worried, Naina wrapped herself in a shawl and stepped out. The cold hit her skin like ice, but she walked through it, calling his name. She found him near the wood, standing beside a man in a long black coat. Naina stopped when she saw the tension in Arav's shoulders. The man turned to her. You must be Naina, he said, cold smile on his face. I've heard about you. Arav stepped in front of her. Don't involve her. The man ignored him. I'm here because Arav thinks love will save him. But the law doesn't work on poetry. Naina frowned. Who are you? The man's eyes narrowed. His cousin, the one he left behind when he walked away from the inheritance? The one who took the fall while your romantic disappeared? Naina turned to Arav. Is this true? Arav looked down. He's twisting it. The cousin sneered. You left your signature on papers you never read. You walked away, but your name didn't. You owe answers. I was set up, Arav said through clenched teeth. They forged my name to claim the land, and then blamed me. Naina looked up between them. So now what? The cousin smirked. He comes back, or I bring the police here. Either way, this love story has an ending. With that, he walked away, leaving behind silence more bitter than the wind. Naina turned to Arav. You never told me how bad it was. I didn't want to drag you into it, but I am in it. I've been in it since the day you left that flower in my diary. He looked at her, guilt in his eyes. I didn't want you to choose between a peaceful life and this. She stepped closer, took his hand. I already chose, I chose you. That means everything that comes with you. The wind howled around them. Aarav whispered. He won't stop. Naina looked up at the cabin. Then we don't run. We fight. And as snow began to fall harder, the two of them stood there shoulder to shoulder, not just as a couple who found love late, but as two warriors ready to protect it. Together, snow thickened over the mountains as if the sky itself had chosen silence. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled low while Naina and Arav sat close, shoulders touching, hearts racing. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, a greater storm brewed, a storm of decisions, risks, and the cost of choosing love when the world wanted to steal it away. Arav stared at the flames. They won't stop Naina. He'll drag this through. Courts, press, shame, everything. She didn't flinch. Then let him. We're not hiding. He turned to her, uncertain. You've lived a quiet life. Peaceful. Do you really want to tie yourself to someone who brings storms? I was already living in a storm, she said softly, silently, alone, waiting for something I thought I didn't deserve anymore. You didn't bring chaos into my life, Arav. You brought truth. Arav closed his eyes. Her words felt like shelter. But the weight of years, the forged documents, the betrayal by family, the pain of being misunderstood, still hung around his shoulders like a chain. They stayed up through the night, planning. Arav had saved every paper, every proof, every signed document he had never seen until after the damage was done. His cousin's forged contracts, the fake witness testimonies, the land transfer that had robbed him of everything legally, but not morally. Naina laid everything out on the floor, scanning each line with eyes sharp from years of reading between the lines of silence. We take this to the right people, and if they don't listen, we go to the press, we go public. Arav hesitated. What if they laugh? They laughed at me when I said I still believed in love after 40, she said, meeting his eyes. They don't matter. He smiled faintly, hope returning like the glow of firelight after darkness. The next morning, they packed every piece of evidence and traveled down to the city. Snow still clung to the roads, but nothing could stop them now. At the city's legal aid center, they met a woman named Advocate Ria. She was in her 30s, sharp, direct, and listened more than she spoke. When Arav finished explaining, she looked at them both and said, You've waited long, but it's not too late. She filed the case, prepared a legal notice, and called a journalist she trusted. But within days, the story was out. A man falsely accused fights back after years in hiding. The media caught fire with it. Some questioned, some supported, many were curious. But Arav didn't care about the noise anymore. He had Naina by his side, and that gave him more strength than 1,000 voices. The cousin panicked, sent threats, denied everything. But the forged papers spoke louder. One by one, witnesses came forward. Some out of guilt, some out of fear of being exposed. The web of lies began to unravel. Weeks passed in a blur of hearings and statements. And all through it, Naina was there every day, holding Arav's hand in court, bringing him tea when he couldn't sleep, reminding him that the world may forget the truth, but love remembers it. Then came the final hearing. Arav stood before the judge, calm and steady. Naina sat behind him, heart pounding. The judge read the findings aloud. Forgeries confirmed. Accusations, false. Property rights restored. Case closed. Arav's cousin was arrested for fraud. His eyes met Arav's on the way: outrage, defeat, and something else. Maybe regret. But Arav didn't look back. He walked out of the courtroom, and into the sunlight where Naina stood waiting. He didn't say a word. He just pulled her into his arms and held her, like he was finally breathing again. Reporters crowded around, cameras clicked. One asked, Sir, what now? Arav looked at Naina and smiled. Now, he said, now we begin. The story didn't end in courtrooms, it began there. Arav returned to the cabin, this time not in hiding, but in peace. Naina joined him not as a visitor, not as a dream, but as his partner. They repainted the walls, planted flowers outside, filled the rooms with books and laughter and quiet morning coffees. People came to know them not as the man who disappeared and the woman who waited, but as the couple who reminded others that love doesn't come with a clock. Naina started writing again. She turned their story into a book, Letters Beneath the Silence. It sold more than they expected, but more than the sales, it brought letters from women who had given up on love, and now felt they could still believe.